Going on to the NBA, we're talking about the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs. Both teams are just, dominating the league in essence. The Warriors are number one in scoring, offensive statistics. Warriors number one. The Spurs are technically number one in defense in all statistics. So when you look at it, and they're 1-2 in the Western Conference. So when you see the picture, it's weird because the Warriors are the ones that went on the game streak and everything. But when you hear people pick their team, who's going to win in the postseason, who can get to the championship in the finals, nobody picks the Warriors. That's interesting. So, y'all, let me hear who y'all think is better, and maybe why is it that the Warriors still haven't got that respect they have as defending champions, where people are still, even though the Warriors have shown to be in top form this season, people still are going with the Spurs to go to the finals and face the Cleveland Cavaliers, most likely out of the Eastern Conference. Kyler, let me start off with you. What do you think?
Between the Spurs and the Warriors, I think the Warriors are a better team just because their offense can, what's the word I'm looking for? They can outlast their defense, the Spurs defense, because I do think they're quicker and they're more precise with their offense than the Spurs are, like more protected than their defense. I do think that the Spurs could definitely tire out the Warriors could tire out the Spurs before the Spurs do the same with the Warriors. I think this whole thing that they keep saying that the Warriors aren't as great as they are is because the Spurs are a better postseason team. In the playoffs, they basically always trample over their opponents. And the Warriors come through, but I don't think that their entire team, well, not team, but like their offense and defense together is good enough for a playoff, like to beat the Spurs in the playoffs. Do you see what I'm saying?
So you're saying that the Warriors are good enough on offense to give the Spurs defense troubles, but the Warriors on defense won't be able to outlast the Spurs. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of, sort of.
Doesn't that go both ways? Because
I don't know.
Yeah, because doesn't that just resolve in a tie? Because if the Warriors offense outlasts the Spurs defense, if the Spurs can't hold up with the Warriors offense, then the Warriors can't hold up with the Spurs offense, then it isn't just like, then where do we go?
Yeah, but that's why it's like kind of like shaky right now, like to say which one is better. But I do think that the Warriors definitely can outlast the Spurs.
So
during the regular season.
So if you had to pick a team right now to say who is better,
the Warriors.
You say the Warriors
right now, yeah.
But if in the postseason, who would you say you have going to the finals?
I would have to give it to the Spurs.
But why is that?
It's just I feel like they're a better postseason team for some reason. They always play so much better in the postseason. If you ever noticed, like they play amazingly well against anybody they go against.
See, I get that point, but the thing is, the Spurs last year got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, that's
against the Clippers,
who basically the same team.
Yeah, relatively the same. I mean, yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, they lost to the fact they still lost to the Clippers in the first round. I mean, I know the addition. LaMarcus Aldridge is a star. Let's not. That's a big addition. But the fact of the matter, they lost in the first round. The Warriors are the reigning champions. The Warriors were number one in defense last year, while the Spurs are number one and number two in total defense this year. Well, the number one in defense per game, and then number two in total defense. But that's all that number stuff. But you look at it, the Warriors are number one in all offensive categories. So why is it that the people don't give the Warriors, like, why are you saying that? Because if the Warriors just won the championship and you're saying the Spurs play better in the postseason,
I think it's because nobody's like seen the Warriors past the Spurs whenever they play them in the postseason. Like, have they beaten them in the postseason? I think that's what they really give that to. Like, anytime they meet them in the postseason, they can't beat them.
Okay.
But that just means that team matches up better.
Wait, just hold on, Rashad. Make your case about
who
you think is better, and then you can answer this point.
See, this one had me thinking because the reason people don't appreciate the Warriors for how good they are as a team is because for as high powered as their offense is, some of their wins aren't impressive. Some of their wins aren't by a lot of points. While they're not the margin isn't as great as if you look at the Spurs team, whose margin is always, they're plus 14 points against the other team. So like when you think about stuff like that, I understand why people still say the Spurs, but right now the Spurs is playing better basketball than the Warriors. Spurs right now is a better team than the Warriors, but I still have the Warriors going to win the NBA championship. But as of right now, the Spurs is playing better ball. They have a better team. That's their team. Their bench is capable of dropping 70. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then every game, like, see, the thing also with the Warriors is that every game, like, if a person is out, like, your question, are they gonna win that game? Like, if Steph goes out, you'll question if they win the game. When Klay Thompson goes out, you question if they win that game. When Harrison Barnes went out early in the season, people was like, oh, can they still win without Harrison Barnes being in there? The Warriors are going, the Spurs are going games where they rest LaMarcus Aldridge, they rest Tony Parker, they rest Tim Duncan, and they still win. And the bench still, like, that team has so much depth, it's crazy. And the Warriors has that too, don't get me wrong, but comparing their bench to the Spurs, it's crazy because what Spurs bench can do, the way their system is in San Antonio, which gives them the nod as why they're the better team right now, which is why they're playing better. Only thing the Warriors have above them is the record. They're both 18-1 against teams under 500. That means against teams above 500, that means the Spurs lost more. But when you think about it, but these games that the Warriors win, we've seen them play the Clippers. We've seen both those games pretty much been kind of close, like all the way down to like the fourth quarter. We've seen them always in like a lot of tight games against teams they shouldn't be tight against. And I'm not saying the Clippers was one of those teams. I'm just saying teams like, when they lost to Milwaukee, something like that. Or because right now, if you look at it right now, they're about to play the Nuggets, or they played the Nuggets yesterday, I think, or they played the Nuggets today, and it's an even. The odds in Vegas right now has that game even. Like you can't be considered the best team when you're playing a team that's well under 500, and they're saying it's even.
Yeah,
that's not gonna happen with the Spurs, which is why right now the Spurs is playing better ball, is a better team right now. But overall, I think in a 7-game series, I think the Golden State Warriors will beat the Spurs.
See, oh yeah, and because Cameron also notified another player, Eddie Lacy is another player from Alabama. That just to
wait, that's going well.
He's doing well in the league. He's a solid running back.
He's a solid.
I mean, he came in a little hefty this season. Big boned, but I think what it is with because when I look at the stats, I mean, the Spurs are number 1 in defensive efficiency. The Warriors are number 4. The Warriors are number 1 in total offense with points scored. They're number 1 in total offensive points per game. They shoot 42% as a team from the 3-point line. They shoot 48% as a team as a whole, just in offense. And then when you look at total defense or opponents points scored, Cleveland is number 1 in that department. But the Spurs are number 1 in opponents points scored per game. Don't ask no questions, man. These people make stats. They just put the numbers there. I just read them. But I think what it is that the fact, like you said, it is true that when you look at this, like the Spurs will rest Tim Duncan, they'll rest Tony Parker. Like I don't think I can find one player on the Spurs apart from maybe Kawhi Leonard or some bench player that has played all games of this season, who's played all 40 games for them this season. I don't think I can find one player. I'd have to legit go through every single every single game. No, honestly, we have to go to every roster. We have to go to every player on the roster
and see which ones.
There's no player that comes to mind because Greg Popovich just operates his team like that. But that's crazy when you can operate a team like that.
That's efficient.
You know what I mean? Like, it's. I feel as though it's because I understand what you're saying because about how the Warriors wins aren't always too convincing, but at the same time, I don't know how we can expect them to be beating every team by 10, 20, because the Spurs don't do it themselves. Yeah, because the Spurs have lost games to teams, and when the Warriors have a better record, I mean that's a testament to the Warriors. You know what I mean? Because they were talking about how the Warriors haven't won games convincingly. The Spurs have lost games that they could have won. You know what I mean? If we're talking about the Spurs are the best in the West, then the Spurs have lost games that they should have won. The Warriors probably won the same games, and even in the Warriors loss to the Bucks, mind everybody that Harrison Barnes wasn't there. They were just coming off a back-to-back. Klay Thompson was just returning from his ankle injury, and they just came off a double overtime win against the Boston Celtics. So they in Boston, so they had to travel to Milwaukee to play Milwaukee.
And
so the rest wasn't really there. You know what I'm saying? They were exhausted. Every player on that team played 48 minutes plus, or at least all the starters did. So they played 48 minutes plus. It's not even like the Bucks smashed them. The Bucks gave them. They played hard against the Bucks. It's just the fact that they had tired legs. When your legs are tired, you're not going to hit shots. Just ask Kobe Bryant. I'm just saying. So that's their game they lost. And then another game they lost
without
Steph to the Dallas Mavericks, who are incredibly well coached by Rick Carlisle. So you lose. And the thing is, even going into that game, everybody was talking about they're going to lose to the Mavericks without Steph. Because everybody knew Rick Carlisle even said his game plan before the game, talking about how he's going to defend the Warriors without Stephen Curry. Because Stephen Curry attracts so much attention that your team just changes. Draymond Green's an excellent player. Klay Thompson's a great player. But when you take away the reigning MVP, that's an entirely different team. That team is entirely different. Draymond Green can average as many triple-doubles as he wants. But when you take away marksmen like Steph Curry, all of a sudden your pick and rolls change. Your playmaking ability that
everybody's not focused on Steph.
You know what I'm saying? The playmaking ability from the point guard position is entirely different. Steph Curry makes passes sometimes when he penetrates in the paint. Sometimes he makes passes. I don't even think he's a threat anymore. Like he's dribbling out and he'll throw a pass like that, and he's not even looking. And it's like I'm like, how do people play with this guy? Like I would. Like, he'd probably get so mad at me because I wouldn't be looking for the pass. I'd be like, okay, I'm going back to my spot. And people know to actually stay around the rim with Steph Curry because he always is making plays. When you take that guy out the equation, the whole team. So I feel like if you took now the Spurs are just that great. But at the same time, the Spurs aren't built around an MVP. If that y'all
But I mean, you can kind of say they're kind of built around an MVP because when you look at it now, people are trying to say Kawhi Leonard is one of the best players in the NBA right now. But so if you take him out, we never know what that Spurs team can be like. He's such a huge impact on that team. Like
that's why I would like to see how many games they played. I mean, it's a long because they played 40 games. So essentially, it's like half the season almost at this point.
They played without Kawhi.
Yeah, so we have to go on a long list of each game to see Kawhi's played, how many games he's played, and if they lost in those games. But even in PER, I don't know. I'm not told. I don't think Kawhi Leonard
is that high.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Just because of how well
he's just getting the nod because of his defense.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
That's the thing.
And I saw a game the other night where I think they just played last night. They played against I think it might have been the Bucks. I'm not totally sure, but they played last night. And Kawhi Leonard didn't shoot all too well, but then you have LaMarcus Aldridge stepping up. Tim Duncan goes like 5 of 8. And it's just and you just sitting there, you're just like, they have so many weapons. It's incredible. But then the Warriors also have so many. Like Draymond Green had 4 to 3 triple-double straight. That's incredible. People were doing it for Russell Westbrook did it in the whole month of February, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, MVP. You know what I mean? So it's like that I do get what you're saying because I believe that maybe it's the fact that the Spurs like they have 5 championships. They got 5 championships.
And it's basically the same team every year.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's always been the center core of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and
Kawhi,
Tim Duncan. And now you add Kawhi Leonard, who's been there for years, who was the Finals MVP a few years ago. You make Kawhi Leonard now your centerpiece. When Tony Parker and them can still get you buckets, Manu Ginobili regressed heavily, but it's the truth, bro.
Yeah, he's getting old though.
He's getting old, but it's incredible how because it came out. It was just like boom, like after they won the championship, it was just like Manu Ginobili just regressed. But you have Manu, you have Manu, then you add Kawhi. Now you get LaMarcus Aldridge. I think that's why so many people are like, man, even with LaMarcus Aldridge, like that team was already a finals destined team because people were saying everybody always talks about. That's why another thing I think that people talk about how lucky the Warriors are because they're like they didn't end up having to play the Spurs. But I could go both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
but
can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
But see, when you think about it,
you can say
like I didn't mean to cut you off by the way, but how the Spurs do rest their players, but the Warriors don't. It's the coach's decision. When it comes to the playoff series, they're going to be playing every game regardless. So that's where I'm like, it doesn't matter. Because they're good when the rest of their players, they're going to play every game regardless, just like the Warriors are going to continue playing other players regardless. So that's how you got to compare the teams. So that's why I still feel like I give the nod to Warriors. Even though they don't rest their players and they were winning by not resting, it doesn't matter when it comes to playoffs because everybody's going to be playing every game anyway.
Yeah. All right, Colin, what were you going to say?
Like you were saying earlier, which you made a point against what I was saying, was that they lost in the finals against the Clippers. And
no, they lost in the first round.
The first round, I think the finals. The first round against the Clippers last year, and they didn't play the Warriors at all. And people saying they didn't play Spurs. I do think that, like you said, they have a good enough bench that they can rest their players and still get great results. And Warriors are seemingly lacking that. Basically, they're kind of lacking that.
I don't know if I'm gonna say they're lacking that. It's just, I mean, when you compare it to the Spurs, yeah, you can say lacking, but compared to anybody else in the league, not really. That's still
that's what makes them one of the best.
You're saying the Warriors are lacking depth?
No,
who are you saying? Who do you say is lacking?
Warriors.
Depth?
Yeah,
you said the Warriors are
lacking kind of like a presence as good as the Spurs bench.
Yeah, man, the Spurs
in comparison to the Spurs bench,
is different.
I mean, I don't. They're not lacking depth. I don't even think the Spurs coming. You got off the Spurs bench. You got Patty Mills, Manu. I mean, it's an interchangeable.
It's just the way they play, though.
Corey Joseph, all those guys. You know, Aaron Baines. You got all these different, players. It is the way they play. It's a big deal. It's the way they play. Because you asked people a year ago what team was the most deep team in the league. It's the Warriors, because the Warriors had Sean Livingston come off the bench. You have who else? You had David Lee. You have Andre Iguodala, and you have, I don't know if this man even Festus Ezeli. He's like in and out of the starting lineup. He's a bench player now, essentially, but because Andrew Bogut someday Andrew Bogut is up here, someday Andrew Bogut. Yeah, sometimes he knows how to go up and come down, but the Warriors. The fact that you can play around your lineup that much shows how deep you are. And that's what people said that beat the Cavaliers, because the Cavs just ran out of fumes, and the Warriors were able to they'd be like, okay, bench unit, go. And then they would go on these runs with the bench unit, or at least keep the game close to the bench unit. Then the small unit of the Warriors would come in with Andre Iguodala and would destroy everybody, But then they, of course, in the finals, they started starting that small unit. But
it worked well for them.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's actually no. You go ahead and finish your point. I actually interrupted you when you were saying your point.
Well, I was also going to say that the Warriors also have they've been kind of like, when they're not as healthy as it was, we were saying this last semester, it was like that they can beat Jordan and the Bulls record if they're relatively healthy.
For a second, I'm sorry to cut you off again, but for a second, I thought you were saying that we had said that they can beat the Bulls like in the head.
Oh no! Oh,
I was about to say
no.
I was like, don't put me in there.
No.
Wait, all right, go ahead.
Wait. When we say beat the Bulls, you talking about a 7-game series or just beat them?
Dog. No.
Come on.
No. Go. No. We don't got time. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Keep going.
But yeah, you said they could beat that record if they was healthy, and some of the players been, they've been losing games with some of the star pieces. And I do think that that they have to be extremely healthy throughout the finals. I mean, not finals, throughout that playoff series in order to beat the Spurs.
Can you say the same for the Spurs?
Possibly.
You take Kawhi Leonard off a healthy Spurs team. You take maybe LaMarcus Aldridge. You take maybe Tony Parker off. How does that? I mean, don't the Spurs need to be healthy too?
True. I do think that.
I think we're sliding the Warriors if we're acting like they're the only team that needs to remain fully healthy in order to make a finals run. I mean, unless you're in the Eastern Conference and you have a guy named LeBron James on your team, I don't see how you can relatively make it through the playoffs without being at least 80% or 85% healthy.
Well, when you think about it, LeBron's never had a healthy team in the finals. When you think about it, he's never had a healthy team.
One time.
Which time?
The time they lost. That was the only time. It's so weird when they lost to the Mavericks.
That I don't know. You can't really.
Dwayne Wade was healthy.
He wasn't.
Dwayne Wade was healthy. He was healthy. Dwayne Wade was the leading scorer in that series. Dwayne Wade was healthy. Dwayne Wade was healthy to me. No, I'm saying he was healthy. That's my opinion. I mean, the game, because if we're talking about, because you're not going to average 28 points or whatever most cases if you got another top 3 player on your team. But Dwayne Wade, for as healthy we saw him for the rest of those finals that they played, Dwayne Wade was healthy.
He was healthy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Dwayne Wade was healthy. Chris Bosh was healthy. The rest of Mario Chalmers was healthy. All those guys are healthy. They just lost to the Mavericks. But no, there's no, especially in the Western Conference, there's no team. Give me a team. I don't think I can even think of a team that's made it to the finals apart from years ago, the Los Angeles Lakers, when they made it without Andrew Bynum, and they lost to the Celtics in the finals, that's made it to the NBA finals unhealthy in the Western Conference. Because it's been the Spurs.
And that's a crazy.
Yeah, Spurs.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It took crazy effort from Kobe to even get us to 6 games. It was the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Warriors. The Thunder were healthy.
They've been healthy, yeah.
The Spurs have been healthy. and the Warriors were healthy. So this thing that people the knock against the Warriors that everybody was just so happened to be unhealthy in the postseason. Hey man, it's not their fault. They actually keep good health. But